Well, everyone, the iPhone 12s have actually been out for about 6 months now, and I wanted to kind of talk about the experience that we've had since the origination of the iPhone 12 and the release. And I can definitely tell you the beginning of the iPhone 12 saga was actually pretty decent. I don't think there was like any super crazy controversy that comes to my head. There were obviously a few. I think the biggest one may be, in my opinion, the battery size going down. That was a really big issue. Obviously, there were some hardware defects, some screen problems as well. But lately, I would say within the last 2 months, it's been pretty scot-free. I go to the Reddit all the time about Apple, iPhone, iOS. I go on Twitter, I see what everyone's tweeting about, and it seems like a lot of those complaints have either dwindled down or a lot of them have been fixed by Apple. You can send your iPhone in and get it repaired, which is a really good thing. And I really do think other than that, those type of issues within the last 6 months have gone down quite a bit. So that's a really good thing in and of itself. Now, on top of that, kind of getting the problems out of the way, my personal experience with my iPhone 12 has been extremely positive. I've had a really good time with my iPhone 12. I love the build quality. I love the way it looks. I love the way it feels. And if you are a fan of my second channel, which is the videos that I do, like tutorial-based videos, I use this phone a lot. Any new iPhone that comes out for that year, I tend to use it for all my tutorials. And this phone is a champ. It really hasn't overheated for anything. If I do any like videos about, doing any video editing stuff, this phone has been able to handle all those things, which I'm really happy about. On top of that, the camera quality of this phone is perfect. Anytime I have to take photos on this phone for my other channels or even this channel, whatever, it handles it like a champ. Those type of things handle this phone extremely well, which I'm really happy about. My only difference and the only thing I kind of have a problem with is that my iPhone 11, which I had before this, pretty much was exactly the same phone in almost every single category. There's nowhere where I'm sitting in, like where I'm using my phone, where I'm like, wow, my iPhone 12 is so much better than my iPhone 11. There really isn't anything like that comes into my head. To be honest, even when I do an iPhone 10 video, I think the same thing. I'm like, there really isn't anything super crazy my iPhone 12 can do that my iPhone 10 can't do. But the iPhone 11 one is more apparent, mostly because I just came from using an iPhone 11 and mostly because the iPhone 11 is still being sold. So that's a pretty big thing. If you're somebody right now who, 6 months into the iPhone 12 release, you currently own an iPhone 10, 10s, or iPhone 11, and you're thinking to yourself, man, I really need to go get another phone, I can tell you, you really don't need to. The iPhone 12 isn't really that big of a difference. It's a downgrade in the battery life, but everything else about this phone is very safe. And I want to say this phone has been a very good phone. It's not a monumental upgrade from the iPhone 11, but it's still a very good phone. If you need a very solid phone, this is the device for you. Now, there were a couple of software issues that I had in the beginning with when I first got this phone. There were random glitches. It was overheating like crazy, and the battery life was extremely bad. But since then, ever since like iOS 14.1 or 14.2, whenever this phone came out, and whatever software I had at the time, this phone has been a pretty decent battery life device. I still think my iPhone 11 is better though, but the iPhone 12 has been a pretty solid device for software since about iOS 14.2 or 14.3. So again, that's another pretty big advantage that you have on this phone. And the biggest advantage, the software updates, you guys already know this, it's been getting software updates every couple of weeks. It's been a while for 14.5. Apple's been working on that for a while, but that is a humongous advantage for this type of phone. You have that type of capability, which I'm really happy about. And I scream at the top of the mountain every single time with iPhone and iOS. The software support from this thing is a beautiful thing. I love seeing that from this device for sure. Now that covers it in terms of like a technical aspect. Of course, this phone's going to be fast. Really, my only other issue with this phone is RAM management as well. I might as well get that out of the way. Throughout the last, I would say, couple of months, ever since this phone came out, the RAM management just hasn't been that great. And that is a big problem with the iPhone 12, even my 12 Pro. For some reason, whenever I'm doing anything side by side or any apps that I'm like doing a speed comparison with, it seems like the iPhone 12 compared to even like an iPhone 11, it just has a hard time keeping up with its RAM management. It'll close out of apps in the background, and that is another kind of big advantage for these older phones, but I guess it's a disadvantage for the iPhone 12. So that's a really big unfortunate thing that you will probably end up experiencing with an iPhone 12. So if you end up keeping a lot of apps in the background, just do keep in mind that they may close out eventually, and it's a very sad thing, but there's really nothing we can do about it until Apple addresses it and fixes it. Now I do want to end off with some other things. So of course, when this phone first came out, it was about $800. I think I spent $830 or $850 on this thing to buy it brand new. Now they have actually gone down in value a little bit in the used market. So surprisingly, 6 months in, this may actually be the biggest drop I've ever seen in any used iPhone. And I think it's actually pretty surprising. And I think this actually has a lot to do with Apple still selling the iPhone 11s and 10Rs. And people, maybe they just want to sell them to buy this one. Like, I don't get it. Also, they dropped a new purple color. So that people maybe wanted to sell their older one to get the newer one. I don't know. But essentially, the median price that I've seen for a lot of these iPhone 12s is around $650 to about $700. And that's actually a pretty big drop. It's about $100. So it's about like over 10%. So what is it, like 10, 15, 20%? That's a pretty big drop going from, 800 to 650. And that's actually over 800. So it's like 830, 8 something. So that's a pretty big drop in my opinion. Now it could be because of the recent cycle. It could be because the new purple color dropped and a lot of people wanted to buy that color. They wanted to sell their older phone. That could also be the case. I'm not 100% too sure, but that is a pretty big thing that I saw. So with the iPhone 12, to kind of, wrap it up, I will tell you, I'm a fan of the iPhone 12. I think it's a beautiful phone. I don't think it's perfect. I think Apple, could have taken a little bit of a broader approach or a more like thorough approach and maybe increase the battery life, maybe remove the notch, maybe given us Touch ID. But after 6 months, you get kind of used to it, like all those complaints that I had in the beginning with things like the battery life, things like the Touch ID not being there, things like the notch, you kind of get used to it and it's not really that big of a deal. And you kind of get used to the things they added as well, because they did add a couple of things with this device and subconsciously you don't really remember it. Like they brought the OLED display on the iPhone 12 and that's a pretty cool thing because the iPhone 11 didn't have an OLED display, but because they were so late to the party, because all these other phones all across the market already had OLED displays, it's like they have to do it. So it's like not even a pro anymore. It's like you have to do it anyway. It's the same thing I see with, split screen multitasking if they ever bring it. But even with a higher refresh rate and Touch ID, if they bring those things, that's awesome. We're going to be hyped for like a week, but then it's going to be like something they should have already done. They should have already done it. I love the, lack of bezel, I guess, around the phone. I love the flat sides. I talk about those all the time because, a lot of manufacturers don't do flat side phones. But with this phone, it just seems like they need to put a lot more, bring a lot more to the table, including specifically for their more top tier phones like the Pro and Pro Max. But I guess we'll see what happens. But as of right now, I'm a fan of the iPhone 12. I think the last 6 months have been a pretty good ride. Hopefully they go ahead with the iPhone 13s and, put in higher refresh rates, Touch IDs, and all that stuff. But I think the consensus for the last 6 months has been pretty positive. I think a lot of people love the iPhone 12. It's been selling very well. And I think as a whole, the iPhone 12 is overall a really good phone in my opinion. If you want to pick one up, like I always mention, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. But that's really pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions or anything like that, let me know in the comment section as well. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count. So it means so much if you guys can hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my other channels. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.